positive pearl, shining like the sun. A story of strength with battles won, inspiring hearts wherever she goes, with love and passion that always shows. Pongal's positive pearl.
Hello everyone, this is Pongal and welcome back to Pongal's Positive Pearls. Today I want to talk about something that has traveled with me for decades. Something I taught with conviction when I began my training career. Something that worked brilliantly for a long time, and something I had to deeply rethink as the years went by. I want to talk about the Pygmalion Effect and how it made perfect sense for the teachers and students of the 70s, 80s and 90s. But why today, with Gen Z learners, it needs reinterpretation and not repetition. When I started my training career, the Pygmalion Effect felt almost magical. The belief was simple yet powerful. What a teacher believes about a student eventually becomes the student's reality. If I believed a child was capable, the child stretched. If I believed a child was average, the child plateaued. Believed a child was weak, the child slowly became exactly that. And it worked, not accidentally, but predictably. Because students of the time grew up in a world where authority was unquestioned. Teachers were not facilitators, they were final. Parents stood behind teachers, not beside children. Discipline was external, fear-based and absolute. Students were raised to adjust, not to question. Approval from a teacher carried immense emotional weight. Disapproval was painful, sometimes devastating. So when a teacher expected more, students pushed harder. When a teacher believed, students complied with belief. The loop completed itself beautifully. Teacher belief shaped student belief. Student belief shaped behavior. Behavior reinforced the teacher's belief. That cycle was powerful for that generation. But then classrooms changed. Children changed. And slowly, very quietly at first, the same strategies stopped producing the same results. Gen Z students entered our classrooms, and suddenly, authority alone was no longer enough. They didn't fear teachers the way earlier generations did. They didn't automatically trust adults just because of titles. They wanted reasons. They wanted explanations. They wanted to be seen, not labeled. When we raised expectations the old way, they didn't rise, they resisted. When we corrected publicly, they didn't improve, they withdrew. When we used comparison, they didn't compete, they shut down. And many teachers began saying, children have changed. They don't respect teachers anymore. They're too sensitive. But the real question was this: have we changed enough to teach the children who are in front of us? Or are we still teaching the children we once were? I had to confront myself honestly. I realized that many things made me effective in my early years were becoming less effective now, and that's not easy to accept. Experience gives confidence, but sometimes it also builds rigidity. I had to ask myself a difficult question. Am I insisting on relevance through authority? Or am I willing to stay relevant through adaptation? At 56, I chose adaptation. I chose to listen more than I spoke. I chose to observe Gen Z instead of judging them. I chose curiosity over criticism. And what I discovered changed everything. The Pygmalion Effect hasn't disappeared, but the starting point has shifted. Earlier, the cycle began with teacher belief. Today, the cycle begins with student safety. Gen Z doesn't rise because we expect them to. They rise when they feel emotionally safe enough to try. They don't internalize our labels, they internalize our tone. They don't mirror our authority, they mirror our emotional state. If the classroom feels threatening, they shut down. If it feels humiliating, they withdraw. If it feels unsafe, they resist. But when they feel respected, when they feel understood, when they feel emotionally held, they flourish. So, today, the cycle looks different. The teacher's presence shapes emotional safety. Emotional safety shapes self-belief. Self-belief shapes effort. Effort shapes outcomes. The belief still matters, but it must be felt, not imposed. I had to unlearn that obedience equals discipline. I had to unlearn that pressure equals performance. Because Gen Z doesn't perform under pressure, they collapse under it. They perform under clarity, under connection, under consistency. I had to stop asking, how do I control this classroom? And start asking, how do I create a climate where learning feels safe? Today's teachers cannot rely only on expectations. They must rely on relationships. Authority now comes from emotional intelligence. Credibility comes from fairness. Respect comes from consistency. Gen Z students don't follow fear. They follow authenticity. They don't respond to because I said so. They respond to let me explain why. They don't thrive under comparison. They thrive under encouragement. And most importantly, they don't remember what we taught them. They remember how we made them feel in the process. Earlier, we asked, what do I expect from the students? Today, we must ask, what does the student experience when they are with me? That one question can transform a classroom. If I can relearn at 56, every teacher can. But relearning requires humility. It requires accepting that experience is valuable, but rigidity is dangerous. Teaching Gen Z is not about lowering standards. It's about changing pathways to excellence. Discipline hasn't vanished, it has evolved. Respect hasn't disappeared, it has shifted direction. Learning hasn't weakened, it has changed language. The Pygmalion Effect still lives, but not in our expectations alone. It lives in our presence, in our patience, in our willingness to grow alongside our students. Gen Z doesn't need perfect teachers. They need emotionally intelligent, evolving teachers. And when teachers evolve, classrooms heal. And when classrooms heal, the future becomes safer. This is Pongal, and this was another reflective episode of Pongal's Positive Pearls. Until next time, teach with wisdom, lead with empathy, and never stop learning.
Pongal's positive pearl, shining like the sun. A story of strength, with battles won. Inspiring hearts, wherever she goes. With love and passion that always shows. Pongal's positive pearl.